Welcome back to a Tuesday Buckeye Talk from cleveland.com. Doug Lamarice and Nathan Baird. Stephen Means still off, and we're talking about, an old name from the Wayback Machine, Quinn Ewers. But we're not just talking about Quinn Ewers, brief Buckeye, the briefest of Buckeyes, for no reason. We're talking about him because C.J. Stroud talked about him, Nathan, and that informed, you get out in the world, and you get a little more real. Yeah, you can say what you think now. And so CJ Stroud has some comments about when Quinn Ewers landed at Ohio State that we're going to talk about to help shape our opinion on how Ohio State handled that, but also really more about the future, what Ohio State did learn from that, and how it affects how they recruit and stack quarterbacks in the years to come. We're also going to hit some stuff later this week, just so people know. Plan is we're going to talk about the most important Buckeyes. We're going to rank the most important Buckeyes for this season, and I'm going to do a little thing on a kind of a rants pod. I'm going to rank the most important opponents for Ohio State this season. Big whole list, coaches, players, coordinators, the people that are going to have the greatest effect on the Buckeyes that are not a Buckeye. So we got some stuff. So we're being a little gossipy. This is like TMZ version. I just caught it on that TMZ show. I just caught it for 8 seconds on my way to a Friends repeat. Whatever they do, they drink water bottles and they lean in their cubicles and they gossip. This Quinn Ewers is about as gossipy as Ohio State coverage and Buckeye talk can get, right, Nathan?
It is, and it was a thing that I was just up this morning. I saw it pop up on across the Twitter, and I went and listened to the clip. And I think the most important thing that we do in this job is not providing information, because there's a lot of people out there providing information. I'm not saying it's not important to provide information. But what I'm saying is that contextualizing information and putting perspective on information is really important. And I thought this was a good opportunity, because I knew that this would get picked up. And I thought this was a good opportunity to try to put some context and perspective around what CJ Stroud was saying. For people who maybe didn't see the post, CJ Stroud did an interview with a YouTube series, and I actually originally misidentified this. It was shared by this podcast called The Beltway Boys, but it was actually on an interview, a YouTube series called The Shop. And he was talking about kind of his inspiration, or kind of playing with a chip on his shoulder, and throughout his career, dating back to all the stuff he went through as a little kid and how that has fueled the guy he is today. And a lot of people have written a lot of things about all those things. But in the context of that, he started talking about the Quinn Ewers situation, and he said the next year they brought somebody else in. Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, was like the number one player I think ever ranked, which was true. I mean, he was like one of the rare perfect quarterback ranking guys for a while. They brought him in. They brought him with like a week into fall camp, which is training camp for us, and I kind of felt disrespected. And as we'll talk about, there are reasons why that is an irrational way for CJ Stroud to have felt about that. There are ways where maybe it was in that moment for a guy of that age and that circumstance, maybe it was a legitimate thing to feel to some percentage of it. And it, as you were kind of alluding to before, I think it says something about how Ohio State maybe could have handled the situation better and how it would handle it in the future.
Did he say, and there was this guy in a podcast talking about living on an island, thinking that Quinn Ewers was going to start by the end of the year?
Well, that was, I mean, it's funny you should bring that up, Doug, because that was something that was going on at that time. There was a debate whether Quinn Ewers was showing up with no real chance of getting quickly involved in the quarterback race, the quarterback thing, and whether he was even going to be able to play at all in that 2021 season, which some people believed. And then there were other people who, because of Quinn Ewers' clear talent, and some of that is being demonstrated now at Texas, thought that he could very quickly step in. And if you're that talented, and the cream rises to the top.
But CJ didn't say that.
He didn't specifically mention you and your real estate holdings on Ewers Island. No.
Yeah. Because I clearly moved into Stroud Heights by the end of his career. Lovely place. Overlooking the ocean. Beautiful. Watch the sun. Oh, you sit up on the cliffs of Stroud Heights. Just watch the sunset and everything feels right with the world. So, gossipy. I'm leaning in. I'm drinking my water bottle. Oh, my. Feels like we have a little quarterback controversy here, Nathan Baird. Except it's not. So,
no.
This is a reminder of how jacked up this got. Because the bottom line was they just recruited Quinn Ewers as like another guy, like a guy who's supposed to be 2 years behind CJ Stroud, who is just like, it's all normal. Hey, competition in the room. It's all normal. It's all normal. And then Quinn Ewers said like, oh, I'm going to come early and drink $1 million caffeinated beverages. And the NIL jacked everything up. So the thing about this that is interesting is, I might get to like letter J on this, by the way, all the things that happened to try to, for people to refresh people. It was never the intention of anybody at Ohio State that Quinn Ewers show up in 2021. That was never the plan. He was supposed to be a 2022 quarterback, right, Nathan? So that's A.
Correct.
B,
he was supposed to arrive in the spring of 2022. Winter.
So if he's a 2022 quarterback, he is 2 years behind CJ Stroud. And this is not like Kyle McCord is much more, I don't know, disrespect for CJ Stroud that you're dropping a 5-star right on top of CJ one class below him, right? That's B.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle McCord, in all of our conversations leading up to that point, he was the guy that was getting squeezed from a roster standpoint.
Okay, so C is CJ is just, I don't know if he's more like this. He talks about it more. CJ, this is not a surprise to hear CJ Stroud, the CJ Stroud that we know, talk about this. Because CJ sees and hears everything, and he takes everything personally. So the idea of, this guy's coming, he's not supposed to be here yet. It's like you're having a party. And someone, you can't do this. Please, young people of the world. When you're young, maybe you don't understand this. Once you own a house, you understand this. When you are having people over, you are cleaning for every second until the first person shows up. So if you're having a party at 7:30, you are sweeping. You are hiding things in closets. You are vacuuming. You are yelling at each other. Or in my case, you are being yelled at. You are panicking. You are desperately trying to get your house in the because guess what? Oh, we had a week to get ready for the party. Oh, then you got busy. Oh, work was nuts. Oh, I fell asleep. I wanted to watch the show. And all of a sudden, you're having a Friday night party. You didn't start cleaning until you got home from work on Thursday. So everyone is in a panic. You cannot show up at 6:45 for a 7:30 party. It's like walking into a war zone. You cannot do it. And if people think like, I wanted to beat traffic. I just want to get there. I'll just show. You can't do it. And Quinn Ewers showed up at like 6:15 for a 7:30 party. And CJ Stroud is in the middle of camp, Nathan, going, dude, I'm vacuuming. I don't even have, I have to get dressed. You know what's the last thing you do for the party? Get dressed. You're cleaning like in a t-shirt and boxers. You're running. You're sweating and running. And you think, oh my God, I have 11 minutes to get ready. You cannot. CJ Stroud was vacuuming in his boxers and Quinn Ewers showed up. So it's nobody's fault, kind of. But once that happens, you're going to feel disrespected. Well, and disrespected might not be the right word. I think you're going to feel like, what is happening? And I'm not sure that it really should be taken as disrespect, but nobody should show up to your party that early.
Yes, and I think that's a very good point to make, that what CJ Stroud means when he says the word disrespected might be a different thing than what it means when it hits our ears. So I think that's an important thing to say. But there are two other things that I want to touch on here. Number one is that
Wait. Hold on. We're doing it with letters. So we already did C. So this is actually, you're making points D and
this is
E.
like, it's like C.1 and C.2. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? If we're doing an outline, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Now you've thrown the whole thing out.
Two things.
Yeah. So one is that I think it gives us some insight into the way CJ Stroud might have still had some, I don't know if self-consciousness is the right word, but you're coming out of the recruiting thing where he had to fight for so long against the perception that he wasn't one of those elite guys. And now all of a sudden, one of those elite guys gets dropped in right when he thinks he is taking this job. And the second thing was that he actually, so at the same day, I went back and looked at this. I know we got some timeline things. August 16th, I think August 15th or 16th was the first time we were able to talk to Ryan Day about Quinn Ewers. So I wrote a piece of him talking about Ewers that day, and it happened, I noticed it was the same day that he talked about Ewers was the day that Ryan Day confessed / revealed / whatever that CJ Stroud was separating in the quarterback battle. So again, you have to put yourself in the mindset of CJ Stroud on as this is happening back then. Still not saying it was maybe the most thought through thing from his perspective, but he had not been named the starter yet, and Quinn Ewers shows up in preseason camp. And as unlikely as we either at the time or in retrospect look at it and say that Quinn Ewers wasn't going to be able to ever get in that quarterback, it's all about putting yourself in CJ Stroud's head. And in that context, I think you start to understand why it was something that, whatever term you want to use, bothered him a little bit.
All right, we'll reset. We're going to come back with a timeline and really just try to take us all through this gossipy edition of Buckeye Talk. All right, I want to apologize for something that happened in the last segment. I fear that something I said may have conjured the image for some people of me vacuuming in my boxers, and I shouldn't do that to people. I shouldn't do that. I've done it, but no one should have to think about it. Timeline. November 19th, 2020. You thought of it, didn't you?
Well, you just doubled down and brought it up again. Like it would have been the considerate thing to do would have been just like let it go by. Like if you're walking through a room and you fart, you don't go back in and say like, "Listen, I apologize for the fart." Like you just kind of let it dissipate.
Sometimes I sing or maybe dance when I do it. Okay, so here's the thing.
To try to cover up the sound, you're trying to like Andy Dufresne your farts.
Oh no! Well, I could go on a whole fart tangent here right now. There's a big thing that I say in my house about farts, but I'll hold off on that. We'll do a whole separate pod on that later.
Save that for a rant.
Okay, so
rapid fire. Rapid fire. Is that what you call your farts?
But as you know, our rapid fires is like the first one always takes 20 minutes, which also might tell us something. November 19th, 2020. November 19th, 2020. It's the Thursday before Ohio State plays its fourth game of the season in that messed up COVID year. Quinn Ewers commits to Ohio State.
During a live Buckeye Talk podcast.
November 19th, 2020, on that Thursday, commits to Ohio State. So it's normal. So then it's normal through 2020. They go to the national championship game. Justin Fields leaves. In the spring of 2021, we know that Jack Miller and Kyle McCord and CJ Stroud are going to participate in this quarterback battle. It's those three guys. And it's all normal. And Quinn Ewers at that point is finishing that spring, his junior year in Texas. And we are anticipating in the fall of 2021 that somebody from Kyle McCord, Jack Miller, and CJ Stroud, probably CJ Stroud, which is the way we all thought of it from the jump, probably CJ, maybe even stronger than probably, would emerge and be the starter in 2021. And then Quinn Ewers would finish school in 2021, and he would show up in the spring, normal track, and he would be a freshman in 2022 when either C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller, or Kyle McCord will be coming back as the established starter, right? So the only thing, so I was keeping open stuff, and I was like, listen, the starter's not great, then Quinn Ewers will compete as a true freshman if there's any questions about the starter. But there will definitely be a returning starter when Quinn Ewers gets to campus. That's the plan. No doubt about it. And then on August 2nd, 2021, comes the report that Quinn Ewers maybe is going to enroll early. He's going to take this class and finish up Texas high school stuff somehow. And that this new NIL world, Texas does not allow high school students to participate in NIL. He has $1 million drink deal. And so he wants to go to college to get his $1 million bucks. So he's going to come to Ohio State. He enrolls on August 15th. And on August 22nd, as you just said, Nathan, is when C.J. Stroud is officially named the quarterback. So, like, right as Quinn gets here, Ryan Day is like, hey, C.J. Stroud's separating himself, which is, again, it's not coincidental timing. Ryan Day knows what's up. But there's a week. So what happens is that you drop Quinn Ewers into a situation where there's not a returning starter, where there's not certainty, where there's not confidence, where anything is possible. And that's, I think, what jacked this up a little bit. So Ohio State, I don't think wanted him to come early, but he did. Once he says he's coming early, your choice is, okay, come early, or, well, you know what, this isn't going to work out. But even at that point, you can't pull the off. You have to take him early. And so it just messes it up. So in the end, August 15th, he gets here. November 20th, he makes his debut against Michigan State, comes in with 80 seconds left as a third string quarterback. December 1st, 2021, Devin Brown commits to Ohio State. December 3rd, Quinn Ewers enters the portal. So it is from August 15th that he arrives on campus to December 3rd that Quinn Ewers goes in the portal. So that's not even September, October, November. It's not even 4 months that Quinn Ewers is here.
Right.
So it winds up being kind of a mess. But so it should have been normal, right, Nathan? That if he just comes when he's supposed to come, what should have happened, if everything had gone perfectly, is Quinn Ewers would have showed up spring of 22. Last year, he'd be right in the Devin Brown spot. So if it was normal, just what Devin Brown is now, what would be happening right now is a quarterback competition between third-year Kyle McCord and second-year Quinn Ewers. That's the normal, everything went smoothly version of this. And that's not what it is. But Ohio State wanting to set that up, Nathan, in retrospect, right? Doesn't that still make sense, right? Is there anything that's what they thought they were getting? Should they still want that if that's what they thought they were getting into?
Should they still have just wanted Ewers on the regular timetable?
No, but assuming, because all the NIL enroll early, Sonny Styles did it, but everybody was on the same page there. So but that idea, is there anything, if Quinn Ewers is in the Devin Brown spot right now, are there any negatives associated with any part of that you do have?
No.
The number one quarterback recruit, he has a perfect rating. Maybe C.J. Stroud would have felt some pressure last year at some point. Maybe Kyle McCord would have been like, hey, you're dropping the number one quarterback in the country on top of me. Is there any negative if it's normal?
The only negative is if I think there had been maybe preemptive attrition in that room, but you probably would have gotten there by the end of this spring anyway. I think what we probably assume would have happened here. Either McCord would have held on to the job and Ewers is like, well, I'm not sticking around. Or would have won the job because it wouldn't have been his yet. Or Ewers would have won the job and maybe McCord would have moved on. That's maybe the only difference with what we have now, which is where you're still going to have, by all appearances, a very secure four scholarship quarterback room and probably a really good person at the top of it. But I think the original plan, I know that we debated it at the time, whether it was maybe the healthiest way to go, and that debate can probably continue, but it was hard to look at that and see where it was going to just turn into a problem, at least from my perspective. Like, again, this was the plan all along. And really, it was the argument that I was making when Ewers got here early was that timeline really doesn't change. He's here 4 months early to make some money. He's not here 4 months early to steal a job or really get that much of a head start. That maybe should have only been beneficial from a football standpoint. Get your feet a little bit under you a little bit, start learning the playbook. Like, you get a 4-month head start on some of those things. But I didn't think that it changed the football equations all that much. Now, the difference is, and again, I've been trying to think of this through CJ Stroud's eyes. We talked a lot 3, 4, 5 weeks in to the 2021 season about, and really only like 3 weeks in. You're coming off the Oregon loss. He looks bad against Tulsa. So then we started having discussions like, should you get a good look at Kyle McCord here? So before we knew about the extent of the injury and he was going to be taking a game off. And maybe that is where we didn't consider enough at the time that Quinn Ewers was also probably a presence in CJ Stroud's mind around then. And that experience could also be coloring how he looks at this in retrospect too. Because at the time, CJ Stroud isn't playing that well. He's hearing it from a lot of different angles. And it's not just that he wanted to be the starting quarterback for the season opener against Minnesota. As you said before, you win the job for that year. You keep that job for 2 years at least before you go off to the NFL. And did he see Quinn Ewers in that scenario? I know he's talking about it only in the August scenario, but as he starts seeing him in September, October, maybe he knows, like, well, I know this guy isn't going to be anything right now, but he's the highest rated recruit of all time. So if I don't pick things up, if I don't get my stuff together, then maybe that opens the door for him to take this job next spring in a way that I wasn't expecting in the first place.
So I guess it should have. I think I still sort of subscribe to the belief of, like, I don't know, like, you stack 5-star, 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 5-star. Are there diminishing returns? Do you somehow create animosity? Do you create more likelihood if you don't have a backup quarterback because everybody who loses leaves? I do feel like if we had just gone, that would have been something. If we had just gone through Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers this past spring, I don't know that we'd be sitting here being like, oh, well, it feels like more, not that Devin Brown's not a highly rated recruit, but I just think, well, Quinn didn't stay for he didn't even last 4 months. The idea that Quinn Ewers would have stayed for 2 years not being the starter, I think, was not possible. And I think it would have enhanced the chances that right now, this spring in 2023, McCord and Ewers would have pushed harder for a decision, and the number 2 guy would have left. And it would have more resembled the Haskins-Burrow situation, which, as Ryan Day said on this podcast, it's not necessarily that Dwayne won, it's that Dwayne was ahead and Joe said, okay, I'm going to leave. And so that idea, I think we would have gotten closer to that Devin Brown, just because there's not quite as much urgency when you're not the number 1 recruit in the class, even though you're very highly rated. And I think some service did have him number 1 once Quinn Ewers left. I just think Devin Brown his foot's a little less on the accelerator, right? Do we think that if that would have happened, even the perfect scenario would have been a little more complicated now?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Just from our conversations with Devin Brown, other things we hear, it doesn't seem like the urgency of, like, I need an answer or I'm bouncing. That has never, I didn't feel like was on the table for this spring. The McCord situation, as we've talked before, is different. He's just later in his career, and the repercussions of it, if there had been a decision already, would have been different for him. But for Devin Brown, I think, listen, and to an extent, this was the case with Kyle McCord. And when we were when Ewers was here in that limited role, this was sort of the conversation with Kyle McCord, was that you're in a tough spot, but you're also always just one snap away from being the starting quarterback at Ohio State with a potential national championship team. Like, you just are. And that's a tough thing to walk away from, to go be the starter somewhere else that doesn't have those immediate aspirations and or realistic potential to do that. So if you're going to walk away from that, and even the possibility of it, you really have to know you're getting something good. And for Devin Brown, I think I shouldn't speak for him, but from when I look at his perspective, like, I still see so much upside to staying through the end of this season, at least. Find out if Kyle McCord beats you out, stay through the end of the season, find out what Kyle McCord's going to do, and then you have a new decision to make.
Okay, so I want to finish this discussion by getting back to CJ Stroud and what the ramifications were in the end for CJ Stroud. But let's keep it on Quinn Ewers and Ohio State right now. So I'm leaning on my cubicle. So Nathan, I don't know. I mean, Ohio State kind of blew it, didn't they? I mean, the guy didn't even last 4 months, Nathan. What went on here? So, like, once Quinn Ewers decided to come early.
Yep.
Was there a way for Ohio State to save this? Was there a way for this to go normal? Now, Sonny Styles, it's like, well, what could you do? Well, I mean, Sonny Styles just did it. Sonny Styles showed up early, played a scooch, had a role in the bowl game, a specific role. Hey, you get bowl practice, whatever, had a role. And now just went through spring in a way that everybody is anticipating a good season from Sonny Styles in 2023. And it feels like, hey, being here last fall probably was just a nice little bonus to help you learn college football, accelerate your timeline, and enhance the chances that in 2023, when you should be a true freshman, you are actually going to be a second-year player. But in 2023, you maybe will be a better player for having been here a fall early. So that's how it could go. Once Quinn Ewers showed up, was there a realistic way, do you think, for that to happen? Or was it going to be, now looking back, was it jacked from the jump and that, okay. And now you throw in Steve Sarkisian gets to Texas. There's a coaching change. Texas, his home state school, becomes a little more of a draw because the Texas he left is now not the same Texas. So that factors into it too. And just, you know, he comes, when he lands here, there's not a starting quarterback. Now there is one. And now that guy's going to be the starter for 2 years. And he's really famous and he's really far from home. And he got here at a weird time. And the way Ryan Day talked about it, he was like a man between recruiting classes. They kind of he never felt like part of that other class, and nobody else from his actual class was here. He was kind of alone for that fall. You know, Sonny Styles is from Columbus. He was never alone because his family's here. It's not the same. It's not. That's a very different part of it. And I think a very important difference in that. Was there really any chance for it to work, Nathan, once Quinn Ewers came in August?
In retrospect, no, it doesn't seem like there probably was. I don't know what Ohio State could have done to fix that. Quinn Ewers and his family might have a different opinion on that, but they may also say, you're right. No, we just decided it wasn't the right fit, and we had this opportunity to come back. Obviously, there's so many circumstances that change, and in terms of the coaching staff at Texas changed, and I think that was probably some consideration, at least in this situation. And and I had heard too that we heard different things about how well Quinn Ewers was fitting in. I think he actually got to be pretty good friends with Kyle McCord from some things I heard. Like, I think those guys got to be decent buddies, maybe even stay in contact till now. I'm not sure about that part, but I know that they were at least hanging out a little bit while they were on campus. Because again, those are the guys you spend the most time with, is guys in that room, and you're both sort of in the same boat. You're the understudy with the starter that's established. So I don't know what else Ohio State could have done. I think this was just a messy situation that everyone on both sides was trying to make the best out of. And Ohio State was just caught, because you can't tell him, I guess this is the debate. Should Ohio State have said, you can't come early? Because then then he's not coming.
Right. I think, given the circumstance, I actually, there's a CJ Stroud part of it that I said we're going to get to. From the standpoint of just what it means for Quinn Ewers as a Buckeye, I think if you say you can't come early, it means you're saying he's not going to be a Buckeye ever.
Right.
So then he wound up not being a Buckeye that ever mattered. He's going to briefly be in the record books because he got into a game for 80 seconds. So they wound up there anyway. But I guess in the moment, it's like, well, even if you think there's a 10% chance of it working, it's more than zero. So if you would have said no, you're punting on Quinn Ewers, was even a 10% chance of its success worth saying yes to? Yeah, no, come on in August. We'll do our best.
And I think maybe in the future, it should be decided. Sonny Styles is the perfect example because those two things are apples and oranges. Yes, Sonny Styles reclassified, came early, all that stuff. He came here for football reasons. He came here because he was ready to play football. Quinn Ewers, and I know it's a different position, it's a lot more complicated, there's a lot more nuances to it, but he didn't, not only was he not ready to come here and play football, he didn't come here for football reasons. He came here for financial reasons. He came here for this add-on thing. And it's tricky for Ohio State because they both have been a little self-conscious about where they stand from an NIL standpoint and losing people because of NIL things. And you don't want to get the reputation of putting a wall up for the highest earning players on your roster to be able to maximize that. That's going to be used against you if you do that. But at the same time, I don't know if you want to make a hard and fast policy, but I think that could maybe be sort of your lighthouse in the future. Is if you're not coming here for football reasons, you really need to think through the ramifications of it.
So it's like I don't want to admit like complete defeat on this. So I will say that I think I'm trying to think of the comparison I want to make to the type of player that if Quinn Ewers had shown up and been like, okay, I know you think I came for the soda pop or whatever the drink was, and I'm taking the $1 million. That's great.
Kombucha.
But like I don't want to say the name. I don't want to give him a free. That's why I keep saying it. I don't want him to get a free thing. I'm cutting that out.
It wasn't. But that's not the brand name. That is the drink.
It's what is it?
Well, you don't want me to say the brand name.
No, wait. But I thought that was the brand name.
No.
That's
Kombucha.
the style of beverage?
Yeah.
What's that drink? What is that drink?
It's awful. It's like a I think it's pretty bad. It's like a natural energy drink almost with like it's got like probiotics in it and stuff. I think I mean, listen, we talk about Chick-fil-A too much on this podcast for any of us to have really done much kombucha, which I may not even be pronouncing correctly. But if Steven were here, he might be able to tell you more because he's always on some kind of healthy drink thing. But I can't. I've had it. I didn't enjoy it. I did. Yeah, it's kind of like pulpy orange juice, but tasting way worse.
I thought it was only a brand name. I did not realize that it was also a general name for that style of beverage. I apologize. Yeah. Also, don't drink it. We are anti-endorsing it here, especially on this podcast.
I mean, there are potentially really great health benefits for it. So if you can stomach it, then go ahead and drink it. But I did not enjoy my experience with it.
So if a quarterback had shown up and said, like, I'm all about, I know why I'm here. Okay, but also I'm all about business, and I'm all about getting to the NFL as fast as I can. And part of that is by being the best college quarterback I can be as fast as I can be it. So I understand that it feels like I don't have many friends right now, but you know what? I don't need friends because it's not football friends, it's football business. And I am here to get in the film room, and I am here to staple myself to Corey Dennis and Todd Fitch and Ryan Day. And guess what I'm going to be? Ready by October? I still don't think that's impossible. Because, like, you know who might have been like that? CJ Stroud. If you reverse it and Quinn Ewers is here and Quinn Ewers is like, hey, have some of my pulpy orange juice. I think I'm going to win this competition. And CJ Stroud gets here in August and is like, see ya. If you're looking for me, I'll be in here in this dark room by myself watching film. Reverse it? I don't know. Right? Because like, that's what I thought was on the table because, hey, like, you're the number one quarterback recruit in the country. You're coming all the way from Texas. You picked Ohio State because you want to learn how to play the position. And there's an opening here. There's no established starter. So if the starter looks a little shaky, if you're all about business, get back to me on October 15th and we'll see what's up. I still think there's maybe a much smaller chance than I talked about it back then. I still don't think that's impossible. But the guy who really, in the end, was more about business was the guy who was already here, who was about to lock down the quarterback job, have some struggles early, get fixed, get his shoulder fixed, and then lock in. And then the other guy who maybe was more about pulpy orange juice just got locked out. And once you see that, it's like, oh, because there was an opening. We can't deny there was an opening. But from the Quinn Ewers perspective, like that part of it, and then I guess the thing that I say about Ohio State in this, Nathan, is you can't blame Ohio State. I still think they could have done a better job. I still think that whatever happened, it was not a 1,000% guarantee that he's 4 months and out, and that, and I want to say the CJ Stroud part, but I still feel like in a very difficult situation where they really didn't have any other options, they still didn't do the best job they could have done given the very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, if you are taking this guy, and again, all evidence that Ohio State not only did not encourage Ewers to do this, but may have not been in favor of it. But once that decision is made that you're allowing him to enroll and you're accepting him onto the roster, then you have to then, I think, go kind of into overtime to put the support system in place that keeps him here, because that was the whole point. It was never about just having him enroll. It was about having him be here for 3 years and be a multi-year starting quarterback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think everybody involved, this is probably an example that will be cited by other programs in the future of how to handle this situation. They'll say, well, we saw what happened with Quinn Ewers and Ohio State, and that helped us handle this situation in the future. But it may also be that the circumstances of this were so unique, because we've been talking about all these things. The thing you left out on the timeline was NIL became a thing on July 1st of 2021. So it was so immediately new, and it was a surprise party, to go back to your party analogy. It was a party nobody knew that they were walking into. So they tried to make the best of it when they were a little bit disoriented, when everybody jumped out from behind the bushes with their chairs and doorways with their fistfuls of money. And everybody tried to navigate that, I think, with the best intentions, and it got messy, and that's how it turned out. And in the end, it didn't change a lot. It got Ohio State still got 2 years of Heisman Trophy finalist play out of CJ Stroud.
So I know what sort of, when we were talking about this idea, you sort of, like this, there's quarterback competition, right? And you had just sort of mentioned in passing what's happening at Texas right now, and that Texas has Quinn Ewers, and they also have Arch Manning there. But what Texas has is what Ohio State thought it was going to have.
Right.
In that Quinn Ewers is back as a second-year starter. Arch Manning is there as a true freshman. The anticipation is that this will be Quinn Ewers' final year in college, and Arch Manning, as the number one quarterback recruit in his class, will be ready to be the starter in year 2. That's what was on the table at Ohio State. CJ Stroud is a year 2 starter. Quinn Ewers in 2022 is the number one freshman in the class. He's there to watch, and then he's ready to be the starter in year 2. Right now, he's still going to have to compete with Kyle McCord, but he's ready to be the starter right now at Ohio State. So I do think in the end, from the Quinn Ewers part of this, I will retain the right to reference Quinn Ewers this season if he plays well and is playing somewhat significantly better than the Ohio State quarterback. I will retain that right to note that. Not to say, oh, man, Ohio State blew it. Oh, man, I can't. Because it would have been, as it turns out, exceedingly difficult to make that work. But that guy was on campus. And right now, and listen, we get it. I know. Buckeye fly effect and all the stuff. It's like, well, Quinn Ewers has a year of starting that neither Devin Brown nor Kyle McCord has. But if he was here, he wouldn't have it, because CJ Stroud, he'd be in the same boat these guys are in. But, I mean, he is talented. His footwork's a little janky, right? I mean, like, you watch the guy sometimes, and it's like, just like lock that in, bro. You've got some skills, but like lock it in. You're just a little loose on the turns there. But you can tell he's got some stuff there. And the Ohio State quarterback situation, I don't think is locked down right now. So, I mean, we can't – the main thing that Quinn Ewers has over Kyle McCord and Devin Brown is a year of starting experience. That's the number one thing he has that they don't. So we have, and again, that's only because he left. But there's also a part of, I do think he's talented, but I also think Kyle McCord and Devin Brown are talented. So I think he's fine, and I think Ohio State's fine. But if it turns out both those statements aren't true, because I'll reserve the right to do the other thing too. If Devin Brown or Kyle McCord, whoever wins the job at Ohio State, is tearing it up and Quinn Ewers has more picks than touchdowns, then I'm going to say, man, that guy kind of wrecked himself, because maybe if he had just stayed at Ohio State or not insisted on coming early, he could be playing at this level while throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and having Ryan Day in his corner and being coached by Todd Fitch and Corey Dennis, because look what they've done with the starting quarterback at Ohio State, who is playing awesome. That could have been Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, what did you do to yourself? So if there's a big gap between the two, I will note it. But I think there's a pretty decent chance that both will be good this year, Nathan, both Quinn Ewers and the Ohio State starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance they'll both be good, and it will be an interesting debate at times, probably. And who knows what you guys are probably talking about this over on the Survivor Show, right? Like, how is Texas for real, and would this be a potential playoff matchup? Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Every time we bring up Texas, Shahan says, I thought this was a playoff show. So, like, he does not like entertaining the idea that Texas may actually be a playoff contender. He will admit, and we did talk about Texas coming off spring football, they probably are the favorite in the Big 12. You know, their receiver room looks a little better. Like, they're just getting some other things in order beyond Quinn. So that's possible, but Ohio State's in better shape than Texas football is right now. So it seems like it just got off track. And also, you know, it's not 100% fair to Quinn Ewers. It's like, you get invited to a party. You've never been to this neighborhood. Yeah, you showed up a little bit early, but you kind of think it's no big deal. And then you ring the doorbell and you walk in and there's a guy in his boxers vacuuming to one direction. And it's like, well, that's not what I expected. Like, it's not only his fault, right? I mean, maybe you just need to be a little ready in case people show up early. Maybe don't put off vacuuming until 45 minutes before the party. So I think it mostly is just weird, which leads us back to CJ Stroud, which is how we'll wrap this up on Buckeye Talk. All right, Nathan, this is my final question then, because this is one of these things. We'd like to take our cues. We aren't a news reaction show. Can't be a news reaction show. Too many talking heads reacting to news. That's not the way to do this. But contextualizing news is one of the most important things that we do. We have to be your guide through the internet, because there's a lot of people throwing up a lot of stuff, which is fine. CJ Stroud said this. He said he felt disrespected. Do you think this going down the way it did, Nathan, had a negative effect on CJ Stroud as an Ohio State quarterback, a positive effect on CJ Stroud as an Ohio State quarterback, or not really that much effect? CJ Stroud was going to be who he was going to be, and there's always going to be somebody else in the room trying to take your job.
Well, I don't think it's the last one, because he's still thinking about it. It like burrowed into his head. Like, it is in there. So my inclination would be, just because of who CJ is and his makeup, and again, going back to the context of the conversation, I think it was probably a positive effect. I think it probably made him work even harder. It probably pushed him, whether it's a real enemy or a perceived enemy, or a real slight, a perceived slight, a real challenge, a perceived challenge, they all kind of equal out as they're pushing you to go get better. And that's what it seemed like it did in this case. The one thing that I think, maybe we should have mentioned this on the earlier part, the one thing that he said that really hit me the wrong way was that this was first brought up in this conversation, and then the host said that they talked you through it, and he said, they told me the day he came, which doesn't sound right. Like, nobody at Ohio State, like none of the coaching staff mentioned this to you at all until he was actually there. Like, something about that like doesn't like ring correct with me in a true timeline. But So that if that were true, that would be something that I think would need to be addressed in some way. But in terms of like the fact that the Quinn Ewers presence hurt CJ Stroud, I guess you could maybe it'd be a yes and no, because we know that early on in that 2021 season he was hearing things were in his head, and it was a distraction for him at times. And then came the injury. He takes the week off and he comes back and it's just lights out from that point on. And it does make me wonder if that was one of the things that was in his head. But I still think that's maybe it's still more on CJ than it is on anybody else.
So I think I agree with that. That in the end, which goes to the theory of give me
Stack
a 5-star quarterback in every class.
Yep.
We'll stack them. May the best man win. And if you don't win, you might leave. But also maybe you'll stay and then compete again the next year, or be ready in case somebody gets abducted by aliens. And let's do this. And here's proof. And that if they had proof before, if they like to point to the Dwayne Haskins, Joe Burrow example as proof of how this can work, then I don't know. Maybe as jacked up as it was in some ways, maybe you point to this like, oh, what happened? Oh, that guy who was kind of mad that Quinn Ewers came in. It's like, whatever happened to him? It's like, I don't know. He's a 2-time Heisman finalist and was the number 2 pick in the draft. How's that fit? Now he didn't beat Michigan, right? But it's like, I don't think Ohio State didn't beat Michigan the last 2 years because Quinn Ewers was here for 3 months and 3 weeks, right? Like I think what the better read is, whatever happened, whatever disrespect CJ Stroud felt, and all we can go is by, Nathan, is what he said. If he felt that, and he said he did, it motivated him, and the outcome was a very high level of quarterback play. So, did it get in his head when he had a bad first half against Minnesota and then had a really good second half against Minnesota, but he was like looking up his name on Twitter at halftime, right?
Yeah.
Did Quinn Ewers push it? Like, is he looking like, are people saying Quinn Ewers should play? Was that a little extra? Was he in his head? Is he trying to make a throw at the end of the Oregon game in week 2, thinking like, I better lead a comeback here, or this stinking guy who just got here and is the highest rated quarterback ever, he's going to take my job if I don't lead us on a game-winning drive? I don't know. I mean, maybe there was some negative outcome for CJ Stroud early, but in the end, this is a guy who uses noise for motivation. I think he also is distracted by noise. And we've said that here before. He knows it. And I think he is something for him to work on at a place where he's probably going to go through a losing season or two in the NFL because of the nature of the beast. But he got in the dark room by himself and he studied film and he did his thing, and having competition, I would imagine, pushed him toward that. So I don't want to have him talk about this and then be the silver lining. Everything that happens at Ohio State, actually, it's a silver lining. It's like, no, there's some jacked up stuff that happens that's just bad. So I don't think this was all good, but it also, you can't look at it as a complete disaster or act like, oh my gosh, CJ Stroud feeling disrespected. What a horrible thing Ohio State did. How dare they do that to him? Because it wasn't anybody's plan, and the outcome was that dude balled out for basically 2 years, or a year and 2/3. So I agree with you. In the end, the bigger outcome is CJ Stroud took the disrespect, whatever he felt, tucked it away, and got to work.
Yeah, sometimes CJ is also, and Steven, I think, has talked about this better than any of us, the fact that he is sometimes maybe too honest for his own good. Because I think what happened here, he's talking about this as if he were like a 15-year kicker in the NFL, and then in the middle of training camp, they bring in a kicker to compete for your job. You know what I'm saying? That, like, he almost talks about Quinn Ewers that way. And that, obviously, everyone knows that wasn't the scenario at all, both at the time and in retrospect. But again, you have to put yourself in CJ Stroud's head. In every step of his life, being disrespected or feeling disrespected, even though, yes, there were times where it got too noisy for him and he had to get through that, but he did. Every time he felt or was disrespected, good things happened. Like, he kept making leaps. He kept making, when everybody in the country was like, you're not Bryce Young, you're not these other elite quarterbacks, he goes to Elite Eight and he beats everybody, and now all of a sudden he's the man. And like, he was able to internalize that and process it in an ultimately positive way. So it makes me, again, as I was writing that and as I've just been thinking about it, trying to put yourself in CJ Stroud's seat, a little part of me thinks he was looking for that to be disrespectful. You know what I mean? Like, he's looking for a reason to keep that edge, because that's what works, and it's worked for him every step of the way. And now someone like Kyle McCord, someone like Devin Brown, things I've like having written that piece about Kyle McCord before, I don't think he looks at the world like that at all. I don't think he has anywhere near that chip on his shoulder, and I don't think that means he can't be successful. I think it's just a different way of being motivated, a different way of processing things. I don't think Justin Fields looked at the world quite that way, even though he obviously had some of his own issues and having to bounce around and make some decisions. So again, I think the important thing here is just context and perspective. And I think if you look at it through CJ Stroud's perspective, at the end of the day, the perspective of this was, the chip that he's always had on his shoulder, the things that have internally pushed him to get better, and this just became another layer on that chip.
Oh, like a dip.
Yeah,
like a dip, like a thick dip.
Like, he already
Dip
had a
on his
scoop of
chip.
bean dip, and then Quinn Ewers was like, oh, I'm getting queso too, and he got like a queso glaze on top of the bean dip already on the chip.
Although, and I think the thing that you said that you noted, which I agree with, being disrespected and feeling disrespected are not the same thing, because you can be disrespected and not feel it, and you can feel disrespected when you weren't disrespected. And if we wanted to draw like a little New Yorker cartoon, and it would be a big vat of disrespect dip, and CJ would be like triple dipping his chip in the disrespect dip. He'd be going back. It'd be down to the nub. He's basically just eating it off his thumb at this point. And he's like, ugh, this delicious disrespect. Is there more of this? Do you have any more flavors? Can we get some more? I don't even need the chip. I'm just going to bury my face in it. And then he's going to go out and throw 5 touchdown passes. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys who work that way. There's a lot of high-achieving people in and out of sports that work that way. 1,000%. I'm not saying that it's the wrong way to do it.
No.
But we just have to, as we guide our listeners and our Ohio State fans, we guide you through the internet. Maybe we should do this. This would actually be like, this is not a bad segment. The like guiding through the Buckeye Talk guide to the internet. We could do that once a week. Like, hey, let's do 10 minutes on stuff that was out there. And let's make a controversy meter. Like, 1 is it's nothing. It's literally nothing. Like, you might have thought it was something, but we're going to tell you why it was not. 1 is nothing. 10 is, that is something. Where would you put this? That CJ Stroud said this, revealing his feelings about the Quinn Ewers situation. 1 is nothing. 10 is something.
Only like maybe a 3, because of what I alluded to a couple minutes ago about what did Ohio State tell him about this? What was the communication there? Because he definitely indicates that there was a breakdown of that. Other than that, though, I think it was just a weird thing that happened, and it ultimately made him better. And again, that's still the context in which he was even talking about it. Like, this was a thing that happened, and then I said, oh, yeah, well, I'll go out, and then he did this thing.
Okay, that's as gossipy as it gets. What else could we gossip? I mean, I don't want to be glib. Actually, I do want to be glib. I love being glib. We don't do we gossip much? What else do we gossip? We try to be very careful with transfers. That can be gossipy, right? Yeah. Because when someone does transfer, it's news. The idea that someone might transfer, well, there's always going to be someone that might transfer. We try not to, do we? We try not to gossip too much on Buckeye Talk, do we?
I think we are a pretty gossip-free zone. I think there are, especially now compared to, there are outlets that are almost gossip-forward. So we'll let them have that space, and we will talk about things when they're a little bit more secure. And this was a thing that he said. I mean, he came out. It wasn't a thing that it would be gossipy if we were like, we're hearing CJ Stroud was upset, and we were having this podcast in August of 2021. This is after the fact. It's 2 years later, and he's still bringing it up. So I think that's important context, because I think there was somebody that immediately when I tweeted out the link, there was like brushback, oh, this is a non-story. What are we even talking about? And I'm like, I don't think it's a non-story, because how Ohio State handled a quarterback decision when they have a quarterback decision to make and are going to keep making them year after year into the future, I think that's relevant. I do think it just has to be talked about in the right context and with the right perspective.
So I guess we did want to spin that forward a little bit. Like that idea, right, of should they never just have brought Quinn Ewers here to begin with? I mean, Dylan Raiola is not coming here. So, and I think Steven had said maybe they're just going down this road of like the big time national quarterback who's ready to go early. Like they're just not going to get involved with that anymore. So that the next Quinn Ewers or the next Dylan Raiola, and we're talking about the Quinn Ewers thing specifically. So then forward, should that inform them? Is there anything about the Quinn Ewers thing that should inform them? Or, as you said, is it such a rare circumstance and that if it had stayed on the expected timetable, it might have been fine? Should it not overly inform them to maybe scare them off, big-time national dudes who might be, I don't know, slightly high maintenance? But again, I'm high maintenance. I don't take that as something like, oh, well, these guys, and you can't avoid every single guy like
right.
that. We're not making a team to go pick up trash at the park. We're trying to make a football team. So I don't know. Like, should the Quinn Ewers thing specifically inform their future quarterback recruiting?
Well, let's not pretend that we're starting to get some evidence that on occasion CJ Stroud maybe was also high maintenance in his own way, right? Like it's handling these personalities is all part of this job. I think the more I think about it, the circumstances of this were so unique. NIL was so new and raw at the time. I think that is maybe going to just be one of those things that was unique to those circumstances, that maybe there won't be that many lessons to be learned from it. But I think you're right that Ohio State can't take itself out of contending for the best quarterbacks in the country. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. This is what you've built things on. It worked with Justin Fields. It worked with CJ Stroud. It may still work with Kyle McCord. I know he's from a neighboring state, or Devin Brown, who's from all the way across the country. Like, I don't think you can let these a couple of cases of guys who didn't even come here. It would be one thing if they were coming here and then failing. But you're talking about two guys like Quinn Ewers was basically a decommitment, and Dylan Raiola was a decommitment. And maybe it throws off what you're doing in that class otherwise, but you're also protecting yourself a little bit from that by recruiting the best possible guy you can in every class, right? Like, that's part of why you're doing that. That's part of the strategy there. So I'm skeptical that the next time a major recruit of that level is out there, that Ohio State is not involved at all. I'll believe that when I see it.
This would have been, I don't think we've done this one, right? On Buckeye Fly Effect, where we try to do a thing like, what if you change something, what would it have done for Ohio State history? I don't think we've done a Quinn Ewers one, but I'm not sure which way, like, what if Quinn Ewers had never come? Well, I think if Quinn Ewers had never come, it's like that is what happened. We got a version of that world.
Right.
Or what if Quinn Ewers had stayed on his timeline? I think we did sort of say he would probably just be in the Devin Brown spot, and we just would have had a little more high-stakes spring quarterback competition. But it's probably not worth a Buckeye Fly Effect, but I like naming things.
It might be someday. I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't think it is yet. I think that might be more like a 2024, because I think we have to see. We've seen Quinn Ewers play and be a starter at the college level now for a full season for a Power 5 big-time team. So we need to see that from these other guys we're talking about at Ohio State, or at least one of them, before I think we can really have a good discussion about that.
Because I will say, Quinn Ewers could have had Caleb Williams' season. And if Caleb Williams was Quinn Ewers, we'd be like, oh my God, I cannot believe they didn't show that guy where the bathrooms were when he got here unexpectedly. It doesn't matter if you're vacuuming in your boxers. Put on some pants and show Caleb Williams where the bathroom is. Like that, that would ramp that, right, Nathan? I mean, that's the thing, that whatever Quinn Ewers is or isn't right now, it doesn't feel like a program-shattering loss for Ohio State, because Kyle McCord and Devin Brown are good, and Quinn Ewers does not look like the number one pick in the draft right now, does not look like a Heisman winner right now, which is what Caleb Williams is at USC.
Right. And it sounded like, from the way Ryan Day talked about it, that all they did was show him where the bathrooms were for like the majority of that season. Because again, he was so young, so inexperienced, that it took a while just to like make him feel he hadn't been preparing mentally for months to go away to college. It was within a matter of weeks. It was like, I'm going to get ready to play high school football. Oh no, I'm going to go sit the bench in college the whole thing. It was just kind of a mess. Messy was the word I used when I tweeted out the link to that story. And again, a couple of people pushed back on that, but I think I would stand by that. And I don't think mess means someone did something diabolical or somebody sabotaged something, or even that there was like incompetence involved. I think it was just, sometimes even the best intentioned things get messy. Buckeye talk.
That'll wrap it up. We're going to do some ranking later this week. We're going to ask the tech subscribers to help us do that. If you would like to participate in those kind of things where we have you rank players and what's the most important this or the most interesting that, 614-350-3315 is how you can sign up for that. On the College Football Survivor Show this week, Shahan Jeharaja and I ranked the top 5 teams in the country coming out of spring football. And since this is Buckeye Talk, I will tell you that we both had Ohio State in our top 5s. If you would like to go listen to that podcast to find out where we had them and why. For now, thanks to you guys for listening. For Nathan Baird, I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Buckeye Talk.